We are Group 6, and my name is Parrish.
I'm Emily Moore.
I'm Allayna Martin.
And I'm Taylor Raker. And today we will be talking about Chapter 16, Visual versus Verbal Communications, from the book Oral Presentations for the Technical Communications by Laura J. Gurak. For our main topics today, we will be talking about visual versus verbal communication, typefaces and fonts, charts and graphs, icons and graphics, and the using of color.
So the first point is visual versus verbal communication. What is visual communication? It's using drawings, diagrams, photos, charts, and other nonverbal forms to convey an idea to your audience. Visual communications have become increasingly more important, and these are from the international communication, computer graphics, presentation software, and the web. So international communication is making technologies available to people who speak different languages. So if you have some sort of drawing or diagram on your presentation, it's really easy for everyone to understand it, even if they don't speak English or whatever language your presentation is in. For computers and computer graphics, graphics are easy and inexpensive to produce, so that makes it super easy to put a presentation together without it costing too much. And presentation software and the web, these drawings, diagrams, photos, charts, they make it really easy, simple to create an idea. So we all think visually. When have you passed a newsstand or seen a flyer and stopped to actually read a paragraph? That's usually not the case. You'll stop and see like some sort of chart or diagram, anything like that, and you'll automatically get the idea from just that chart or graph. We'll rarely sit down and read a whole paragraph just to find out information. We can get information so much quicker from charts. So we all have pre-attentive vision, which means that humans process pattern information globally at a glance. Humans process charts or graphs differently than text. So natural human ability to learn from visuals is combined with the global workplace and new computer tech. It's very effective for an oral presentation.
For our next point, we have typefaces and fonts. So typefaces are another form of verbal communication, and the typefaces refer to the family of the family of the typeface, such as Times New Roman, and the 12-point bold, or the italic, or the regular. So for our first one, we have serif and letters that have feet or small flourish strokes at the upper and lower end. So as you can see here, these letters all have little flourishes at the end of the letters. And so the most common form of serif is Times New Roman. So the next one, we have sans serif. And sans in French means without. So thus sans serif means without feet. And the most common type is Helvetica. And most often, if you're doing a paper for class or a presentation, more often than not, many teachers and professors will ask you to use sans serif or serif. So next we have the types of typefaces as well, with the regular, bold, italic, and bold italic. So for this one, you can see that it is regular and has no extra added to it. Bold helps express an emphasis on ideas, and a lot of times when people are excited, they will use bold, or if they want to get that main point across, and you can even use bold in a title or header. So italic is often used to show a book title or to just show an emphasis on an idea as well, or a thought. And bold italic is mostly bold and italic kind of mixed together, so if it's a thought that needs more emphasis, then they'll use bold italic. So how to choose typefaces and fonts for an oral presentation. Before technology was advanced, fonts actually used to cost a lot of money, so they had a very limited selection to choose from. But now, fonts are very easily accessible from the internet, and also a lot of times are automatically hard drive to our computers. And on Pages or Word or Google Drive, you can choose from numerous selections of fonts. And with all these choices, one must exercise discipline. A lot of teachers do not prefer Comic Sans or fonts that include writing that looks like cursive. So if you have too many typefaces and fonts, that can create a lot of visual noise. So you want to create, at the beginning of your presentation, you want to have one typeface or one font and use it throughout the entire presentation, so you don't want to change fonts very often.
The next topic we will be discussing is charts and graphs. Charts and graphs can be powerful tools, especially in technical communication. Technical communication information is often numerical, so a chart or graph makes it easier to convey. Charts and graphs come in a variety of styles, such as tables, bar charts, line graphs, pie charts, and diagrams. You need to choose the format that best suits your presentation. You also need to clearly label the chart so that it doesn't confuse or misguide your audience. You need to keep it simple and use an appropriate size, and always test your visuals on a sample audience. Indicate the point you're trying to get across with the visual.
Okay.
Like typefaces, charts and graphs used to be difficult and expensive to produce. A table is a good visual device to use when you are trying to show choices between different categories of information. Also, they let you say a great deal with very few words. Bar charts allow you to show trends and compare similar information spread over a period of time.
So as with tables, bar charts should be simple, clear, and really easy to read. The number of bars and amount of detailed information should be visible from anywhere in the room. So if you have someone sitting in the back of the room, they should be able to see your chart very clearly and see exactly what it says on the X and Y axis. The X and Y axis should be labeled always, and further details should be shared for handouts. So if you have any extra information that you're wanting to convey from your bar chart, you should have an extra handout to give your audience so they can learn more about what you have to say from just that bar chart. Line graphs are used to illustrate trends. You can see that they go up and down. If it's straight, you can see that from line graphs, just like a line. While pie charts are used to illustrate the relationship of parts to a whole and to one another. Be sure to label all of the pie segments. So each segment should have what you're trying to convey from that segment, so everyone knows exactly what you're talking about from just looking at the pie chart. Don't use too many different types of shading from the pie chart and screening to separate the segments. Sometimes that can get kind of confusing and people might not know where one line ends and one line begins. And lastly, diagrams should contain only as much detail as is helpful to your audience. So only put on there what you really want the audience to understand right away from that.
So wrapping up with tables and graphs, we are now going to move into icons and graphics. So icons work like an analogy. So most of us are familiar with computers. So when you open up a computer, you look at the bottom of the screen or to the left of the screen and you see all these icons. And when you need to throw a file away or an item away, you move it into the trash can. Or when you are trying to send an email, you see the little envelope and you send an email, or you need to check emails as well. So all of these are analogies. So oftentimes, when you're doing a presentation, your icons that you have need to be appropriate. And you can use icons instead of rounded bullets in a presentation. And it can also make information easier to read. And also can add life and complexity to your presentation. So when you're making a presentation, you want to have something like this next slide has. You see we have stars here. They're not overbearing and it's not too much, and it goes along with the theme of our presentation as well. And so these stars are a good example of using icons as rounded bullet points. So when you have graphics, you do not want them to be too distracting. We didn't talk anything about these sunflowers in our presentation, so that wouldn't make sense for a presentation that we would be presenting. But to give a direct example on what something that would not be a good idea to use, we decided to keep this one in there. But overall, it's not too distracting to our presentations because it's out of the way. And none of the writing that we have written goes over this sunflower. And the graphics help bring color to presentations. So with this yellow, it adds a little bit of extra color along with the gray and the blue that we've chosen along with the pink. So we decided that this would be a good example to show, as you can use it in a presentation. And another thing, if you're doing a presentation on horse care, you could use a graphic of a horse. Or if you're doing a presentation that includes Tennessee Tech, you can use a golden eagle. So that's another way that you can use graphics, is directly relating them to, and that's how they should be used to your presentation.
Okay, so coming off that, another topic is using color. So choosing the right color requires teamwork from every single member in the group. For example, it took us a long time to choose these colors. We actually changed it right before we got here because we realized that using a gray background would go well with white and the audience would be able to see it better. And so with feedback from all the members of the group, it becomes truly effective. So the audience and purpose does play an important role when choosing your colors. For example, if you're choosing to present to an elementary school, you may want to use pictures and colors that are maybe more flattering to kids versus adults. So maybe colors like pink, like bright blue or something like that. But if you're presenting to, say, like a group of engineers, you may just keep a simple pattern in color. Also, if you're presenting to maybe Tennessee Tech, you may want to throw in some gold and purple in there. But too much color can also be confusing and distracting and be known as what other people have mentioned as visual noise, which is found on page 204. It gives the audience a realization of what the thing should truly look like. For example, if we are talking about sunsets, and you could talk about sunsets all day, but I feel like for someone to actually realize what it looks like, they have to see a picture. So it can also help keep focus. So for example, items that maybe are more important, like maybe a word or a sentence, could be bolded or in a different color so it would focus the audience's attention. If you look at this visual right here, it shows some colors that flatter each other. So for example, yellow and red go together, red and blue, and then blue and yellow. So over time, color has improved, technology has improved color. So if you choosing colors on here, especially this specific, we use Google Docs for this, you can basically make up your own color. And presentation software just makes it easy. So like if you're creating a pie chart, you can use basically any color in the rainbow for your pie chart. Another important aspect is room lighting. So in here, the lighting is like LED lighting. So since it's brighter, you need to use a darker PowerPoint and like maybe a darker background that has lighter words so they really stick out. But if you're in a dark room, you may want to use lighter colors to draw the audience's attention. If you open a window, that can also add additional lighting as well as flashlights. So color helps organization with PowerPoints. So maybe use like the same color for a title as well as captions and stuff like that. Something important to keep in mind when choosing color, however, is culture. So for example, in China, red means prosperity, but in African cultures, it means death.
So this concludes our presentation on visual communications and how it is an important component into technology today and how we give presentations. So all these diagrams, drawings, and photographs, typefaces, and fonts, they help us really make a presentation more professional, and they also help keep it organized. And so if you're giving a presentation to a business or you're giving a presentation for a class, we advise you to keep these things in mind when you are making it. And so with all of these things, we use visual versus verbal communications, the typefaces and fonts, charts and graphs, icons and graphics, and the using of color. And so these help organize and focus your topic on what you're trying to talk about. Okay, we're good. Thank you for watching and learning more about Chapter 16 from Oral Presentations for Technical Communications.